guys, Jenna Ortega just destroyed woke Hollywood. Yeah, no, so I guess Jenna Ortega here. I haven't seen this yet, but I guess in this specific little clip from this interview, she basically talks about how she doesn't want to see gender bending in Hollywood. She thinks that females should have their own franchises or whatever. So, curious to see what exactly she said instead of just reading tweets. Yeah, let's see. Oh, and then afterwards, we're also going to watch Brett Cooper made a video talking about it as well. So we'll see what she has to say as well.
Yeah. You know, so it was just like really insightful and opening, and that was definitely one of the things we connected on.
Wow.
There are certain movies that should get a sequel and shouldn't get a sequel, and Tim's like been very articulate about this. Like, he was open to this for years if you got the story right and it happened in the right time, as you said. But like, where are we at in other things? Like Edward Scissorhands, for instance, he said, just leave it alone. Yeah. Like, do we feel like that? Like, that's like, if he called you up tomorrow and said, you know what, Edith Scissorhands is...
What a woke soy boy. Look at him in his glasses and his stupid hair. Like, what a woke loser. Gosh, what a disgusting. I get grossed out even even looking at a guy that looks like that. Yeah, we're not gonna touch on that anymore.
Calling to me, Jenna. What would you say?
No, you know what I would say about that specifically as well? I love that there's a lot more female leads nowadays. I think that's so special, but we should have our own. I don't like it when it's like a spin-off. Like, I don't want to see like
yes,
queen.
Yeah,
you know, like I want
yes.
to see just like another badass.
Yes.
So yeah, something like that. Definitely leave it. And also the beauty of something like Edward is the.
So like my whole take on this is that it's not. It's like it's not one or the other. Like you can have both things that exist, right? Like, yes, if in Hollywood they just had like, you know, gender bent characters or whatever, and that's how they had their like female representation, then probably shouldn't do that. But like you can do both, because like the whole thing for me is that even framing it as doing it for representation is, in my opinion, also like the problem, because the way like the interviewer, Josh Horowitz, I think is his name, he didn't even come at it as like what if Tim Burton wanted to do something for your stupid, pathetic race, or not race, gender, your stupid, pathetic gender, and he wanted to give you Edward Scissorhands so that we could have yet another female lead. Like, the way he presented it was that, oh, what if, like, Tim Burton had an idea for, like, an Edith Scissorhands or whatever? Like, in my opinion, making an Edith Scissorhands for the sake of having a movie with female representation, like if that's an idea that some stupid executive comes up with, that's dumb. But I think it's equally as dumb to reject an earnest pitch from Tim Burton because you think it's the wrong type of female representation. Like, in both situations, you're letting your personal politics get in the way of creating good art. That's how I feel about it.
The mystery, I think it's very sensitive. You see, Beetle Juice can still somewhat be original because he exists in no specific time. You could take him back to the 1800s if you really wanted to, you know? Like, you really can make an anthology movie series with him. Exactly, go to the future.
Yeah. No, it's a fairy tale. It's a timeless fairy tale.
Yeah, something. There's.
No, it's real.
I think you gotta.
What? Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah.
What?
Sorry.
Yeah, definitely suss it out. Suss it out.
The original Beetlejuice, important for many reasons to many people.
I think that's it.
On the first.
All right. So yeah, I mean honestly, it's a pretty simple comment. I mean, but at the end of the day, I agree with the perspective, right? Like, or I agree with I think what she's ultimately getting at, which is that she wants like original female led films as well, but let's like I think we're at the point where we're getting all of that, you know. Although to be fair, I don't know if she would, because I was gonna point out Furiosa. I don't know if she would count that necessarily, because it's not like because it's still a spin-off. I'm not sure. Actually, let me go back. Let me listen to her if she specifically means gender bent or if she also says like spin-offs.
Beetle Juice. It hadn't even been a year since Wednesday came. I don't loved. Yeah, very great. Family.
Should get a sequel, right? For instance, he said, but you know what? Edith Scissorhands is calling to me. Jenna. What would you say?
No, you know what I would say about that specifically as well? I love that there's a lot more female leads nowadays. I think that's so special, but we should have our own. I don't like it when it's like a spin-off. Like, I don't want to see like Jane.
Okay, I see. So actually, hold on. This is a challenge for me. Can I think of an original female-led film? Well, I mean, obviously, you know, like, I think we're specifically here talking about like popular blockbusters, or are we? Because it's Beetlejuice. Okay, now we're getting it, but like obviously, like Challengers came out earlier this year. What is it? The movie that's currently in theaters, It Never Ends With Us or whatever, with Blake Lively. Okay, like obviously where there's not a shortage of original female characters, but I guess if we're thinking about like blockbusters, I think there's definitely a point to be had. Because like just this year, like Furiosa comes to mind, but that's a spin-off. I'm trying to think in recent years. Would you count I know Alien Romulus is currently out. I think I haven't watched it, but I think Kaylee Spaney is in that. Can you count that if the original Alien also had a female lead? I don't know. Like admittedly my mind is blanking, but I think at the end of the day, like my argument does stand that like in an ideal world, you would just be letting artists make the art that they want to make. And I think you would organically see both original female characters and, but then you could also allow, if for whatever reason Tim Burton wanted to make an Edith Scissorhands or, what's his face, the guy who makes the Mad Max movies. Yeah, if he just wants to make Furiosa, like why would you not let him make Furiosa if he just wants to make it and it's a great movie? Because of the box office, dumbass. Okay, fair enough, but that's a separate story. Yeah. Oh, you know what? I actually just thought of another one. Rebel Moon. You know what? That's not the best example in terms of quality. Okay, so well said, Jenna Ortega. Let's see what Brett Cooper has to say about the situation.
Welcome back to the comment section. I'm Brett Cooper. That's fun. I haven't done that in a while. Well, guys, over a year ago, I did a video on actress Jenna Ortega and Latina representation in Hollywood. And I made that episode because Jenna had been parroting a lot of progressive...
Wait, what? Why? What? Bro, like, I don't know. I'm gonna be honest. I am... Like, my mom is Mexican. No, sorry. My mom is Puerto Rican and my dad is Mexican, so I'm Hispanic or whatever. I think I'm also Latino because I think if you're a Latino or a Latina if you're from a Latin American country, I think, right? Is that fair to say? Do I have that right? I don't even know. But like basically my experience is just as a white dude because I've grown up in America. I sound white, I look white. Basically, I'm constantly seeing like Hispanic and Latinos and Latinas and Latin people arguing about if like, oh, is this celebrity? She's not really Latina. And it's like, I just can't imagine caring about that. So I'm gonna be for real, no cap. And then it's like, do we really need fucking Brett Cooper weighing in? I don't know. I haven't watched the video. Maybe she makes reasonable points.
Ortega and Latina representation in Hollywood. And I made that episode because Jenna had been parroting a lot of progressive talking points about needing representation growing up and filling that void for young people today and how important it was. Her entire identity is her racial background. And then simultaneously, while she was doing those interviews, she was getting ridiculed on social media for not being able to speak Spanish, being compared to another Latina actress who was born not in America, but chooses not to make that her entire identity as an actress and the driving force of her career, yada, yada, yada. You get it. Anyway.
I mean, so I'm curious about this. Did she watch like one interview with Jenna Ortega and be like, "You're making this your entire identity," even though maybe it's just like an interview that she gave, or does Jenna Ortega like talk about this in every single interview and she's like inserting it into like literally everything? I'd be curious to know if it's just like one interview that she gave, or if Brett Cooper is perhaps, shockingly, maybe, who knows, I don't know, being dishonest.
That is the context in which I've spoken about Jenna Ortega before. But at the time, I saw all of this as a very obvious PR move. Like, her team knows what works in the socio-political climate. I'm sure that they were like, yes, Jenna, go talk about representation. This will be so amazing. Everybody will love you. But in the last year or so, since I made that episode, Jenna's fame has exploded in a totally new way. And as a result, she seems bolder and far more sure of herself, which is clearly reflected in the things that she decides to bring up in interviews. So we have to talk about
why what is like the need for this like weird like psychoanalysis as if like she was being controlled by the puppet masters in Hollywood, but now she feels emboldened to speak out and say what she believes. It's like, what? I just like talk about what they said. Jesus Christ. Like, you have no idea if any of that's true.
Why that is so awesome. Before we do, though, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the comment section channel if you've not already.
Bro, I'm so bad at that. Like my video and subscribe to my channel. I never say it until like the end when nobody's watching.
Of course, hit that notification bell if you never want to miss one of our episodes. So the backstory on this particular episode is that a few weeks ago, I saw a comment from Jenna in an interview that she had done, and I loved it. But I wasn't really sure how it would fit into an episode. It wasn't big enough to be an episode in and of itself, but I tucked it away for a rainy day, knowing that you would be in the news at some point and I'd be able to use it. And if you wonder how I write the show and create the show, it's basically a lot of that. I just have like flags and things and folders everywhere, things that I want to use and comments that I think are...
Does she act? Do we believe that she actually like writes her show? Because she works for the Daily Wire. Doesn't she have like script writers and whatnot? I don't know. Who knows?
Interesting. And they always end up coming back and they end up being used on the shows, but it's great. It's a full circle moment. Anyway, I knew that this comment would come in handy for an episode, and it certainly did. So Jenna right now is currently doing press for her new movie, Beetle Juice, aka Beetle Juice 2. She's been all over my social media, on TikTok, on Instagram, on X, doing interviews with her co-stars Nona Ryder and Catherine O'Hara. And when I said in the introduction about her being more bold and sure of herself, a great example of this is something that just happened at the Venice Film Festival last weekend. So she and her fellow cast members were getting off the boat. They were being greeted by paparazzi, and almost immediately the paparazzi started screaming at Winona Ryder, who was standing next to Jenna, to take off her sunglasses. And Winona was getting visibly uncomfortable and stressed out. And if you know anything about her history with paparazzi harassment and how that impacted her career, this makes sense. And this was Jenna's response. And that's all. It was so simple. Literally all she said is, no, you don't have to. You do not have to.
Why is she like trying to paint this weird narrative? I mean, I guess, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like if I ever became like a famous actor, I would never, even for 1 second, acquiesce to paparazzi. Like, even as somebody that's not an actor, it's like you can just tell that paparazzi are like the scum of the earth, like the bottom of the barrel human being. And like you would just, I would just never acquiesce to any demand that they may or may not have.
Have to bend the knee to them. You can however you want. You can keep your sunglasses on, ignore them, we're here to take photos, and we can leave. And this one interaction, it just went mega viral. I mean, this video alone got over 10 million.
Building your online business? Go to Wix.com and set up
views on TikTok. Jenna is now being interviewed about this moment later on in press tour. It's just wild. And what stood out to people the most, why she's being interviewed about this, she seems totally unfazed by the attention and the screaming, which leads me to infer that she's also grown increasingly unfazed as to what people think about her. And you can obviously see this when you read this comment that I tucked away many weeks ago. This was when she defended her co-star who was allegedly fired for her stance on the Israel-Palestine conflict. Variety reported on Jenna's comments, tweeting, Jenna Ortega says that everybody wants to be politically correct in Hollywood and that lacks honesty. Quote, the business that we work in is so touchy-feely. Everybody wants to be politically correct, but I feel like in doing that, we lose a lot of our humanity and integrity because it lacks honesty. I wish that we had a better sense of conversation. Imagine if everyone could say what they felt and not be judged for it. And if anything, it sparked some sort of debate, not an argument. Wow. Common sense. Can you imagine that? It's literally wild, guys, that I'm sitting here making a video.
I think I don't know. There's a lot of like, like people being like centrists or whatever, and being like, we need to be able to say what we believe, and it needs to spur a debate without us hating each other and without us calling each other mean names, and we can't argue and blah, 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 blah. And it's like I agree with that generally speaking, but I feel like where we're at right now. In the United States, it's like it feels like half of the country and then the other half of the country literally live in like alternate universes where like you have like half of the country that doesn't believe that the last presidential election was real. Like, you still have like half of the country that believes that Joe Biden is an illegitimate president. Even though when you look into everything that Donald Trump did on January 6th, we don't need to get into it, right? But like, and I do think that this is all going to tie into what the broader point about this that I'm going to make. At the end of the day, when it was time for like Trump to face his day in court, he didn't deny. Like he didn't say like I'm innocent, I didn't do the things. He decided to like his plea was, I deserve criminal immunity for actions taken as president. So it's just like, when we have like half of the country, when we have like the facts laid out the way that they are, and you still have like half of the country divided with the other half on whether or not we even have a legitimate presidency. No, like it's okay for things to lead into arguments, and it's okay for things to get heated, and it's okay for it's okay for that to happen. But I think what shouldn't happen is that like once Jenna Ortega says some like retarded shit, I don't know, she shouldn't be fired from Beetle Juice. Like, we shouldn't be going like, well, Jenna Ortega said this about abortion, so I'm not gonna watch her movie. You know what's currently going on with like the Snow White movie, for example, where like, you know, a bunch of conservatives are like, yeah, Rachel Zegler said this in an interview 3 years ago, so I'm not gonna watch the new Snow White movie, man. It's like, if we can't just like be able to agree to disagree, but still engage with each other and engage with just as human beings, that's the problem. So it's okay for arguments to happen. It's okay for them to get heated. It's okay for me to think that you're crazy, and for me to say that I think you're crazy. But if at the end of the day we can't still just like come together and just like coexist, that's where the problem is.
Like an entire video about somebody saying, I would love to just be able to have a conversation with somebody and have somebody not be canceled. Literally insane. The right to disagree with our neighbor and still love them and care about them and be friends is literally what this country was founded upon. And now in 2024, I'm going, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. She's so fabulous. The bars in hell. The bars in hell are something to celebrate because at least it's one step forward in the right direction. You know, nature is healing. We have to celebrate. We also have to celebrate how balance of nature has healed me and made my health regimen that much easier. Because imagine trying to eat 31 different fruits and vegetables every single day. It sounds miserable. It's time conservative. Which imagine that in Hollywood.com. Promo code Cooper. Let nature heal you. Just like Jenna Ortega is healing all of our Hollywood spirits and energy. Anyway, but it does make me laugh because imagine that in Hollywood. Being willing to work with and be around people who think differently than you, having challenging conversations, just so crazy. And it's really funny. And I might do a full episode about this later on. But Bethany Frankel from Real Housewives, who is now just a TikTok star and legend, she's had this whole resurgence of fame. She recently made a couple of TikToks basically saying this exact same thing. And now she's being attacked and called conservative, which I don't know if she is. I don't know anything about her politics, but she's being called conservative just because she said that we should have open discourse and still be able to be friends with people who disagree with us. If that is what gets you called a conservative, so be it. It says more about them than it does about us. Just saying. I wanted to talk about this because it is so rare that you hear this sentiment coming out of Hollywood, especially from somebody.
Yeah, I mean, like she's saying all of this, but like actually, if you go to my main channel, link in the description down below, I literally just made a video about about how the Daily Wire is making like their own Snow White movie, and how like if you go and watch like Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh's commentary about the Rachel Zegler Snow White, it is like the most insane bad faith nonsense possible. And like they're like actively trying to cancel the new Snow White movie, trying to convince people not to go watch it. So it's nice that she's saying all of this, but let's also not act like the Daily Wire is not engaged in this same like bad faith, like political division rhetoric that she's talking about. Like let's just be honest here.
buddy who is so young and his career is still taking off, because this is the time at like 23 years old when you're getting your big break when most people are desperately trying to fall into line and appease the execs. But apparently not Jenna. Somebody commented and said she's correct. Political correctness makes everyone all the same with no diversity. I thought they loved diversity. I guess not that kind of diversity. Somebody else said it doesn't matter if you agree with her political views. Free speech is essential. Period. Exactly. One other guy said I'm a bigger fan than I was before. Honesty is indeed lost in favor of appeasement. Correct. And that is true in more ways than one in this day and age. Now, the other thing that I want to bring up about the situation with her is that Jenna didn't just share this sentiment in an interview and then walk.
Also, I mean, it should be. They also fired Candace Owens. I mean. I'm just being real. Like, I mean, I don't know. You know, I don't need to get into it or anything, but I don't even remember exactly what she said or why they fired her. But I'm just saying, like, that's just should be pointed out. Like, she's over here saying all this, but like, clearly at the Daily Wire, like, there's a line. If you cross it, you're out of here.
Away. She literally.
Well, like, because that's the other thing as well. Because, like, to be fair, I think if I remember correctly, Candace Owens was going, like, very far into, like, you know, Jewish conspiracy and whatnot. But, like, would the Daily Wire ever host a liberal, just like a liberal commentator? It's like, I don't think they would. If Brett Cooper all of a sudden turned a new leaf and she decided that she was pro-choice, if she decided that, she thinks that Medicare for all is a good policy, and yada, 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 would the Daily Wire keep her on? I don't think they would. Let's be real. So again, it's just like, this all sounds nice, but I just think people should remember that when conservatives talk about this kind of thing, it's because, like, they're not in power. If conservatives were in power, they would be acting just like the left people that are in power right now are acting. I just think it's good to keep that in mind. That this is all a little dishonest, if we're being real.
Left the Scream franchise that she was acting in after her co-star was fired. She said, no, I'm not doing this. You fired her because of something that she said online. I'm walking. I think she literally walked the next day after someone was fired. Like, that is putting your money where your mouth is. And it doesn't matter if politically you agree with her or her co-star. That is loyalty, and that is acting upon principle, which I will always respect. And she didn't just stop there. In another interview more recently that she just did for Beetle Juice, she also spoke about female representation in Hollywood. And she said what all of us had been thinking and feeling for years at this point. She was asked this hypothetical question by the interviewer about whether she would accept an offer from Tim Burton to play the female version of Edward Scissorhands in a remake. And she said no, rightfully so. This was her rationale.
Like, if he called you up tomorrow and said, you know what, Edith Scissorhands is calling to me. Jenna, what would you say?
No, you know what I would say about that specifically as well? I love that there's a lot more female leads nowadays. I think that's so special, but we should have our own. I don't like it when it's like a spin-off. Like, I want to see like Jamie Bond.
I love that. I don't know if you guys caught that, but she said, I don't want to see like Jamie Bond. She doesn't want a female version of James Bond. Okay, she goes on and she says this.
You know, like, I want to see just like another badass. So yeah, something like that, definitely. And also the beauty of something like Edward is the mystery. I think it's very sensitive. You see, Beetle Juice can still somewhat be original because he exists in no specific time. You could take him back to the 1800s if you really wanted to. You know, like, you really can make an anthology movie series with him. Exactly, go to the future.
And I love what she said at the end here because she is obviously respecting the art. She's going, no, it does not make sense to make a remake of Edward Scissorhands that, you know, doesn't add up. And then she's arguing why.
Hey, Papa John's here, and are you hungry? I know I am. Got a great deal just for you. It's called Papa Pairings. Get
Beetle Juice work.
But she's not But that's the thing. Like, she's not respecting the art because the artist, in this hypothetical scenario, the artist in Tim Burton has come up with again this is in the hypothetical, so we don't have, I obviously I don't whether it actually is or isn't compelling isn't the question here. In this hypothetical, it is compelling. It's like a good script, it's a good pitch, it sounds good. You're only objecting to it because you just don't, because of your political reasons that you think that female representation should be another way. You're not respecting the art. Just to be clear, like, this goes back to the point that I made way in the beginning of the video, where it's like, this, in my opinion, is just as dumb as some woke Hollywood executive just wanting to make an Edith Scissorhands for the sake of having more female representation or whatever.
Works, why the sequel works, but she's clearly thought for all of this and is coming from a place of what I would call artistic integrity. But I do want to briefly go back to what she said about women and female leads, because audiences aren't against seeing female leads or seeing more diverse casts. We want to bring that conversation to this, but they are annoyed, and rightfully so in my opinion, when it's so forced and it's shoved down our throats. And many people, including myself, find it incredibly lazy and honestly more offensive to just make a gender or race swap in an existing story, slap it on there, and then just call it a day. Like, be more creative. Like, I'm not against diversity, but actually try to make something that is genuinely, authentically diverse and interesting, rather than just doing something sloppy so you can get some progressive brownie points. Because doing that only hurts the integrity of Hollywood in this art form, or what's left of its integrity. People in comments definitely agreed with.
I wonder who she might be talking about. I wonder what remake she might be talking about there, because she had to throw in the race bending, huh? I wonder what she might be talking about, because, you know, I believe she's playing Snow White, huh? Kind of interesting. Interesting to think about.
With her, one person said she's right. It not only ruins well-established franchises and characters, but it is also insulting women and minorities as it feels lazy. Create new franchises for new characters. If they're compelling, people will vote with them.
Again, like, I'm just like repeating myself at this point, but it's like, It doesn't have to be one or the other. Like, you can do both. You can let artists use already existing IP to tell stories that they want to tell. And if you know, they have a cool idea for a female version of it, doing it, like, denying that just because it doesn't agree with your politics and how you think that women should be represented, that's just as cringe as the opposite, in my opinion.
Person said exactly, same with changing characters' races. Just make cool characters that fit those demographics. That's why it's so wild to me. For example, when they race swap a princess story and they just like shove a black girl in there, is there not an amazing story with a black princess?
See, I mean, it just feels so... By the way, for people that don't know, this feels like propaganda to me. I feel like I'm watching propaganda, because we weren't even talking about race, by the way. But why is Brett Cooper bringing up race now? Well, Snow White, Daily Wire. Oops, what did I just click? Oh, there it is. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. Brett Cooper is playing Snow White. Huh. Curious. In their own version, the Daily Wire's own version of Snow White. So curious that she's inserting race swaps into this now. Huh. Very, very curioso. Oh, why is it, like, important? Or why is it meaningful that she's, like, I guess a white Snow White? Well, I think it might be, because the Disney Snow White movie allegedly may be featuring somebody that I guess has a little too much melanin. Too brown to go to town, as we say in the business. I don't know why I said that. Interesting that she has to, like, make it about race now, even though we're not even really talking about race. Curious indeed.
Princess that you could tell that would be so much more interesting and have so much more complexity and nuance. Like, at least try. Do the research. Find something interesting that audiences will love. It's really not that difficult. Another person commented and said, this is what we've been saying. Stop gender race swapping roles. Make some new badass roles that add to a franchise. That would require creativity, though. Most of Hollywood lacks that now. Another commenter jumped in with a critique and said, no offense to her, but women have been in leading roles since the beginning of film. And to be fair, that is true, and I saw a couple other comments that echo the sentiment. But I honestly think that Jenna saying this was more of a commentary on how Hollywood has gotten lazy and creatively broken versus a commentary on women's representation in film. Another person said, is she an incel? Because I've been saying this for years now, and it somehow made me a right-wing homophobic misogynist incel. It sounds about right, to be honest. But, like, it's crazy to me that this is even political. Like, this makes logical and creative sense, and I love seeing actors vocalize this because I know that it's not just us in the audience that feels this way. It's not just us that are tired and bored. It's the actors too, because they're more entrenched in this madness than we are. So all of this to say,
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, right? Like, just make good movies. That's really it, right? Like, you can do whatever you want, just make it good. You can make it woke, you can make it not woke, you can do a race swap, you can do a gender swap. Just make it good, and then the people that watch the movie, if they just watch a good movie, then they're not gonna care. It is unfortunate though that whenever you get whenever you get like a bad, you know, woke movie, we'll I guess we'll use like the 2016 Ghostbusters reboot as an example. Because that's bad. Oh, well, it's because they were lazy, and it's because they were just trying to be progressive, and it's woke, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, is it not possible that maybe movies are just bad sometimes, and that was just a bad movie? Like, do we have to, like, say that, well, because they made them women, well, that's why they're bad? Or because they gender swapped, that's why it's bad. It's like, could it not have just been a bad movie? Because they also did the other two reboot movies, or sequel movies, and those also aren't great. And they didn't, like, recast or gender swap anybody there. Is it possible that Sony is just incompetent? Incompetent? Is that not also just possible? So it is unfortunate that we'll say like a gender swapped movie can't be good, or like a female led movie these days. That a gender swapped or just like a female led movie, they can't be bad anymore. whenever a movie like that is bad, it's always made about the gender, right? So like The Marvels. If you actually watch that movie, it's not even like all that feminist or whatever. But because it's bad, oh well, clearly Hollywood, wokeness is the problem there. It's like, no, that movie's just bad. The Acolyte. If you heard people talk about The Acolyte, it would be like, you would think that, with how much they bring up like the lesbian space witches, you would think that like every episode, lesbians everywhere, they're having hot lesbian sex. And unfortunately, that's not the case. Unfortunately, it's not even technically confirmed that any of the witches or the characters are gay or whatever. Like, the show isn't even woke, but because it's bad and it has like a diverse cast or whatever, I guess, it's bad because they were lazy and they were just trying to shove their progressive agenda into it. And it's like, no, I think the show just turned out bad, and I think that just happens sometimes. And I think that should be the same for like gender swapping or whatever. It's like, yeah, it's just like any other movie. If the right pieces are being put into place, if you have an artist that has genuine passion for what they're doing, if they deliver a good script, if they have the right, studio supporting them and financing the movie, then it can be good or it can be bad. And I don't think we should necessarily be inherently against it necessarily. So that's my perspective, though. Oh wait, did you have anything else to say?
This streak of honesty and boldness because the world certainly needs it. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode of the comment.
Yeah, I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.